So hello everybody, welcome to the Demetri K Show and the Demetri K Podcast, where we promote Black love, knowledge, and understanding of all things that go on in the Black community to make us an even better people, with the emphasis on even. I am Demetri K, and I am sitting here next to Donovan, the recovering Democrat Sadiq, where we are going to get into a discussion, and there's his shirt, You Matter. We're going to get into a discussion about an incident that happened on Wednesday, March 9th at a Northwest Texas middle school called DeSoto West Middle School, where a substitute teacher was injured after having chairs thrown at him. And I'm going to actually show the video. But before we get into that discussion, Donovan, what say you?
Hey, you guys, again, welcome to the Demetri K Show. Please do us a favor. Please like, share, and subscribe, and even become a member if you get a chance on your platforms and other platforms that you might think that this discussion is warranted. Also, we are on all the platforms, iHeartRadio, Tidal, Spreaker, Spotify, you name it, we're there. And if you guys do us a favor, it does take time and effort to do these podcasts, and as you guys see, Demetri is all over the place. We've got a Cash App, we've got PayPal, we've got Venmo, we've got all of that. So if you guys feel the need, please, in the words of a lot of these pastors you guys hear on Sundays, we don't mind the roll, but we want the fold kind if you're going to donate. So do us a favor and do that for us, please.
Absolutely. So as I said, we are going to get into a discussion about waywardness in the school system, all the way from, we got a little bit of feedback. I don't know what that is. Yep, there we go. There, much better. So waywardness in the school system, not just in Texas, but all over the United States right now. Of course, Donovan and I went to school a very long time ago, and we saw some things here and there, fights, scuffles, some disrespect in the classroom. But I would venture to say that is nowhere near as what we are seeing now. Like, the level of unruliness is uncharted, if you ask me. And so before we get into that, I'm going to actually show y'all the video. Now, again, this happened at DeSoto West Middle School on March 9th. So check it out.
I didn't want to go in chair.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys the beginning again, because it was so fast that maybe you didn't see it. But watch as the teacher has a chair thrown. As you can see, the student right here, he's already in, full swing and getting ready to throw the chair. So check it out. Bam.
I didn't want to go in chair.
So, of course, you saw the teacher throw two chairs back. Now, I should say that that teacher is a substitute teacher. And as we know, not just in Texas, but everywhere, there is a teacher shortage. And it really started to happen due to the pandemic, where a lot of teachers were just like not wanting to go into the classroom because they're, forced to teach with children who have different circumstances, and they come in with, the virus and all of that. So a lot of teachers just took early retirement and decided not to go back to the classroom. So a lot of these classrooms are manned by that of substitute teachers. So that's who he was, a substitute teacher. Now, it is said that they don't know what happened, what caused this particular melee. But again, this is a junior high. It's not a high school. This is a junior high where you saw a male student hurl a chair at the substitute teacher, busting him in his head. And as you saw at the end of the video, the teacher was sitting down as he had blood dripping from his head. So it hit him pretty good. And so again, he retaliated, I guess you could say, by throwing two chairs. And so this video was released by a parent, I guess, and now it's under investigation. And they had to actually cancel class on Friday. Guess they needed a faculty meeting and all that to see what needs to be done. So they decided that they would tell the students that they cannot use their cell phones in class, nor headphones, and that they were going to beef up hallways, security, and things like that. I guess to try to avoid that. And so they actually said that the video is unauthorized because they're not supposed to be filming in class. But one thing I want y'all to notice too, if you didn't notice, I'm going to point it out, how unruly the whole classroom was. Whole classroom. You got some kids standing on the desk. You got, kids screaming and hollering. And there's a few kids actually that had their phones out filming the incident. And so you have this teacher who is basically in a lion's den, if you will, And so we're going to talk about it from both angles, because I know there's some people who are blaming the teacher. And then there's a lot of people who are blaming the kids, and then most definitely the parents, right? But we're going to get into that. And so, Donovan, what say you just initially seeing this video?
Well, we come from a long line of old educators, right? Where the teacher is in charge and the teacher is the spokesman for our parents until our parents can get there. So we come from a different era where people were supposed to respect the teacher regardless as they stand in teaching us something. And one thing my mother always told me, that teacher represents her. And what that teacher says goes until she says otherwise, or she can get to it. And what we're seeing nowadays is how parents have, in my opinion, especially these young parents, have abandoned their duties as parents and letting these kids raise themselves, giving these kids options. These kids got rights and all this, and you have certain rights. There's no doubt about that. But one thing in my household was, you ain't got no rights in my house. You're going to be a child. You're going to do what you're told. There is no gray area in my house, and that's how I did my thing. And right there is you're seeing the result of lack of parenting skills, because anybody that has any respect for authority and law would not have even been. That was unheard of when we were coming up. That was unheard of to even attempt that. And I'm looking at the teacher, and I know you got a lot of feminazis. The kids got to defend themselves. No, the teacher has to defend himself, because that's what these teachers are dealing with, and that's why we don't have teachers that are people going into the teacher profession, because number one, we don't pay them enough, and number two, look what they're dealing with. These guys got to go in there with body armor practically just to get a lesson out, and it's just so sad. But I'm going to stand with that teacher. He has a right to defend himself. He is the authority. He is the legal adult in that room. And until you turn 18, according to the law, you are not an adult, and you have no right equivocal to what an adult directs you to do. That's my take on it.
So yeah, absolutely. So again, there's a lot of issues here within this, just from this short frame. Again, we don't know, at least I haven't heard any reason as to why this happened. I'm not saying reason like it's a reason why the student threw the chair. There's never a reason to do that. But I will say this, just seeing this video, the classroom is very out of control. And listen, I was a kid once, and it was a running joke within the classroom that if we had a substitute teacher, we're going to sink the sub. Let's sink the sub, kind of make it, give the student a substitute teacher a difficult time. Nothing ever too major, never anything like that, right? But so you got this teacher who's there to try to instruct the class as best he can. And, you got students who obviously aren't listening. They're up and down. It's just a lot going on, right? Now, a teacher actually sent me this video, and she said pretty much this is why teachers are not sticking around anymore, because they're not just, because when I think of a teacher, I think of someone who is going to teach a child reading, writing, arithmetic, and, maybe some other stuff in between. But now teachers are expected to be disciplinaries, right? Like, you imagine a lot of these classrooms have upwards of 20, 30, maybe 40 kids in the class. And so they're not only trying to teach your child, but they're sit down, don't do this, put your phone away, don't do this, stop, all these other things going on, in addition to dealing with parents who are like, not my baby, what you say to my dealing with all of that. And so, and we know that teachers do not get paid a lot of money. They don't get paid for the job that they do. So they got to try to teach your child. And then we're wondering, too, why these children are not turning out as, I guess, capable academic-wise, because they're not just getting a lesson. They're getting, sit down, stop, put your phone away, don't do this, don't do that. I don't care what your mama. You got to go, all of that, right? And so these kids, I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. And I'm standing with the teacher too, because I'm just going to go off of the first chair thrown. First chair thrown was done by that of the student. Now, a lot of these kids, I'm going to call them kids because I want to call them something else, but I'm going to be nice. You
can always say hyena. It's okay.
Well, I was going to call them demons, but to throw a chair at a student, I mean, a teacher, a grown man with other kids in the class, that is very demonic. Now, some people say, what about the teacher? Yes, the teacher should have exercised some control. But I will say this, try having a chair that looks very heavy, thrown at your head, and it connects to your head. A lot of adrenaline is going on. And so instinctively, he was probably like in fight mode, right? Not flight, but he's in fight mode. And so I say all that to say is our teachers are going through all of that. And somehow, I feel like this man is going to lose his job and potentially be, held criminally responsible when it really starts at the house. People sending their children to school acting bad as hell. And they think that's okay. And then they'll make excuses as to why their children should act like that. Why ain't they say, I sent them to school to be with you? Why don't you have control over your classroom? Because your child don't come in here and just sit down and open his book and read or write or whatever. It comes in here and it does all the kind of stuff. And then you got the phones in the classroom. And it's just a lot. And so I don't see how even our educational system stands under all of this extra nonsense.
Well, let me say this to be devil's advocate, Dimitri. Your brother is a professor, Professor Smitty, as we know, and you have some teaching experience in your background. How would you have handled that situation?
Well, so again, we don't really know what happened in that classroom, so it's kind of hard to say. But I'm saying just initially, from hold on a second, let me call you right back. Okay. So initially, from what we saw on that video, if I was the teacher and not had a chair thrown at me, I'm probably going to do the Tasmanian devil, spin around and be mad, right? I don't know if I would have resorted to throwing chairs back because, I think I'd be a little bit more quicker on my feet. But this is the other thing. So let's say he doesn't throw a chair or anything like that. He's bleeding profusely from his head after the student throws a chair. He calls the principal, whoever, hey, I just had a chair thrown at me. The kid is going to be probably right back in the classroom a week or two later. I think gets out of suspension. They don't deal with the problem. And the problem is this, the children, and not the good children, but the bad children have too much control over the school. They do too much trying to cater to them. Okay, well, let's see what's going on. But it's like, what about the other kids in that classroom who are genuinely there to learn, and they got to deal with this demon spawn throwing a chair at the teacher, and then it's just a lot, right? Like, imagine how traumatic that would be for the other students. But I would have had him removed from my classroom, and then I would have told them he cannot ever, 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 ever. In fact, I want a restraining order against this child and his mama and daddy. My question is this, and I'm with you 100%. I'm with you. But the thing is, like you said, it starts at home. Where did a child learn the behavior that they can pick up a chair and throw it at a grown adult? And here's one thing our listeners got to remember, and some of you guys are veterans and stuff like that. Remember that program they had, Troops to Teachers? A lot of people, don't remember that, but that's where they were trying to downsize the military, and they incentivized military people to go into the teaching profession because, we're kind of rigid and we kind of know how to do certain things, and it incentivizes all these people to go from troops to teachers. So you don't know if that teacher that you're dealing with is a veteran and trained to. I'm not saying the teacher would do it, but you know what I'm saying. I could kind of see. I don't know if that teacher particular was a veteran or whatever, but he ain't with the back down. He wasn't with the back down, looking at the video, the way I look at the video,
these are minors and they're children. Until you're an adult, you will do what the authoritative adult tells you to do without question. Because if you are sane enough and old enough and mature enough to make your own decisions, the government would let you go and emancipate yourself. Go out there, like Demetra has always said, let your knowledge take you as far as you think it's going to take you, which isn't far. So I have to give it to the teacher for showing that enough restraint, because I know some guys that would have gone hands-on straight out and wouldn't even worry about the consequences.
Yeah, and then can you imagine kids like that going out into the world? Yeah, and again, I always talk about this. Parents are not teaching their children coping skills. And I'm just going to just kind of let loose a little bit here. There are some horrible, piss poor, unfit like a mug parents breeding children. I say breeding because
we've had this discussion. I don't want you talking about me and how I conduct myself, okay? No.
But I'm saying breeding because anything could breed, right? Cats, dogs, fleas, roaches, they can breed. It doesn't take a whole lot to breed. You put the female or the male part into the female part and you breed, right? But the other difference is actively raising the children, teaching them something and including coping skills. You send your bad children to school and they're bad because you're a bad parent, right? And don't give me that one. That's just some kids. Yeah, there's some kids who are Damians from the Omen, right? They are just that. Okay, Rosemary's Baby. They are Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, and we have a lot of kids that have been taught to be followers.
Right. So there's kids who are, let's say, they're just genetically bad. Okay, like bad seed. But I'm willing to say that most of those children learn that behavior from home. They learn how to be unruly demons from the house, and parents think it is okay. Y'all know how many stories have we heard of parents going up to the school wanting to get in the teacher, saying, I just want to know why you took my child's phone. I want to know why you saying all this to my child. Instead of saying, like our parents would have said, oh, my kid did what? Oh, okay. I guarantee you when they come back to school tomorrow, you won't have that problem, right? Because we got dealt with. It wasn't unless, the teacher was lying or something, but there was no alliance with the child against the teacher, because our parents had the smarts enough to know this person probably spends more time with my child than I do. Right. So I need my child to go to school, do what it's supposed to do, so life is easier for everybody. But we don't have that caliber of parents anymore. These phones, these tablets, the TV are raising these children, and that's who the parents are. And then they go to, listen, I talked to a teacher once. She was 3 years from full retirement. I'm talking about full retirement. She could check out and get all her money. She said, I ain't going to make it. She said, this is my last year. She says, because I'm not making a difference with these kids. And she said, these kids are not like the ones I started teaching 30 years ago.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another problem in the teaching profession too. You have teachers that have stayed way too long, and because they're not as young and spry as they used to be, they can't control the kids as things have changed over a period of time. Because remember, you always had that teacher that been there for 40 years and she'd drink her Irish coffee and had to, she was just there, like all the athletes would go to her class because it was like an easy B or C or whatever, you're going to pass. But I remember one thing that used to terrify me that my mom used to tell me, and my brother and I. She said, I do not have the time to come off of my job where I have to pay rent, I have to buy food, I have to, pay the bills in the house. And my mother's a widow. She's not a single mother. She's a widow. To deal with your foolishness. She said, your job is to go to school and bring home good grades, or at least the best you can. And that's it. And if you can't do that, then we have a serious problem here. And I made sure that I never did anything in conjunction to where my mom had to miss work because of my, bad behavior, because I knew right from wrong and stuff like that. And like you said, we dealt with consequences. there was consequences. Especially, we were on that tail end where the teachers still had the paddles, and they were starting to take the paddles out of the schools because the teachers had the principal in them had the authority to get that paddle of knowledge and let you know what was going on when you didn't do that. When we started taking prayer and discipline out of the schools, this is what you get. And most of the kids that are unruly that I've seen, they're dealing with parents that were unruly themselves. And they're living with their grandmamas and all that, and they're running roughshod.
And so I often hear that the people say, oh, we need prayer back to school. I mean, I'm neither here nor there with prayer back to school, because it ain't the school that needs prayer. It's the household that needs prayer, and it needs some discipline, right? Because y'all don't think teachers go to school and pray like, Lord Jesus, let these demons act right today. Let me. So I like the prayer in school. Okay, fine. Let's put it back in school. But is that really going to solve these kids coming to school and beating the teachers up and throwing chairs? Like, to me, for a child to throw a chair, he already has a condition in his mind that there are no consequences to doing that, right? Like when we went to school and we got in a fight, we knew it, and even if it was with another student, we knew it was going to be a consequence, right? But to pick up a chair and hurl it all the way across the classroom, he already knew he wasn't going to suffer any consequences, right? Like there was no thought like, what if I kill this teacher? What if I seriously maim him? What if I hit another student? I might be going to jail. So there was none of that coming out of his thought process, which is why I also say not only are parents not teaching coping skills anymore, they're not teaching critical thinking skills and teaching their children, what is this going to cost me? If I throw this chair across the classroom and I bust this teacher in his head and potentially he dies, am I going to get a murder rap? Am I in the state of Texas going to be tried as an adult for murdering this, murdering this teacher because I hit him in his head? And the teacher seems like an older guy, right? And to your other point about older teachers, I don't care if that teacher was old as Methuselah. Children need to be taught, you mind your elders. Take your black ass to class, sit down, bust your book open, and take instruction all the way until the time that bell rings and you get your ass home, right? There is not that being taught, but his parents, I guarantee you, if you look into the life of his parents for just 5 minutes, you're going to say, aha.
Aha. Exactly.
I see why this little demon, and I know somebody's going to get mad because I'm calling him demon, but I am not one of those people that believe all children are nah. Because I'll tell you what, if that was my daddy that was a substitute teacher and somebody threw a chair at his head, I'm probably not going to sit back and say, well, God bless the child. Ooh, nah, I'm going to be looking for retribution one way or the other, whether it's through the man or through the other man.
Right. Well, the funny thing about me is, even if I didn't get involved in the shenanigans and wasn't involved in all that stuff, I would be afraid. Remember back in the day when you used to get in trouble, even if you were on the playground, Miss Johnson would see you and then she would smack you around a little bit and then call your mama, and then your mama or dad is at work, and then, wait till your father gets home. I mean, it's bad enough you're in trouble at school, but you're going to get it at home as well. And that was one of the things about me. If I got in trouble at school, that's one thing, which, you hate because you don't want to get in trouble, whatever, but you got caught, whatever you're doing. Okay, I got in trouble at school. Now I've got consequences at home. And here's the thing about my mom. Even if I'm right, I'm wrong because of how I responded. She's the adult. I am to continue to do what I'm instructed to do, even if I disagree with it. I mean, unless, let's not talk about molestation. We're not talking about that. We're talking about, let's say I disagree with what the teacher's instructing or whatever. I don't have a right to disrupt the class. I don't have a right to do all that. I'm supposed to go to my mom and say, hey, or my dad and say, hey, I don't agree with this. They were saying black people are slaves and that, whatever the teaching, whatever the issue is, I'm going to get my ass beat when I get home. I mean, because I'm not going with the set program. Because think about this. Would my parents be liable if that man got injured? Could they be criminally liable for what I did? Even though they weren't there, I'm their child. They're held to, to a certain form of responsibility to what the child does, correct? Because if they didn't, these kids would be emancipated.
Well, I do know, and I'm not for sure how it works, now, because my child has not been in school in years, but I just know that once the child is on school campus, from the time that it gets there, from the time that it gets into the door of their house, that they are the responsibility of the school. So for sure, the teacher could go after the school. And yeah, I don't know why he wouldn't be able to go after the parent, but I just think I don't want to be careful here. I believe in redemption, but I believe that, just seeing that child hurl a chair across the classroom at the teacher, clearly he has anger management skills. And so I don't believe, because I wouldn't want my child.
I don't even think it's anger management skills. He has female anger management, female tendencies, because, a man that has a father in his life would never even attempt that. Remember, we had teachers that would take you to box. Yeah, policemen that if you had an anger problem, you would go box and get it out. If you want to be a man, you fight. Like my stepdad, when I wanted to start smelling my musk, he took me outside and put that fist in my chest, and that's all she wrote. I remembered my place. But young boys, we don't throw things. That's kind of a female thing.
Well, I wouldn't want my child in a classroom with somebody like that, because I would be afraid that that child may come unglued or might hurt my child. I wouldn't want my child anywhere around that kid. That kid needs to be somewhere else, where he can get some different type of instruction or some discipline or whatever the case is. But we have a problem, and unfortunately, it does stem back to the not unfortunately, but it stems back to the home, where parents are not parents anymore. And I'm saying this because I was a damn good parent, and I still am. And now listen, when I say that I was a damn good parent, I did not say I was perfect. Yeah, I had some issues or whatever, nothing big. I didn't do everything to the T and all of that. But what I will tell you, and I bring my daughter here right now and tell you, she'll tell you one thing Demetra did not do is put up with no shenanigans at school, because it's a reflection on me. When you go to school and you don't do what you're supposed to do,
exactly,
then we're going to have some issues. I had a problem with my child twice in her whole academic career. Once when she was in kindergarten, she first started, she wasn't her first time in school, but it was her first time being in school long term. So the teacher was like, and my daughter's the only child. She's like, she's not listening. She keeps, wanting to talk and do this, that, and the other. Because they would give them little behavior slips every week. And so she wasn't doing so hot. So I put in front of my daughter and the teacher. I said, okay, well, next week we'll come back. And if she's not better, then I'm going to deal with it. So she wasn't better. She still was doing whatever she was doing. In fact, she tried to eat the little slip, because she knew that if the teacher gave me a slip and she wasn't behaving, it was on and cracking.
Right.
So the next week, she said, well, she wasn't much better. So I asked my daughter, I said, is she telling the truth? And she says, yes, mommy. I said, what did I say to you was going to happen the next time we're having this conversation? I said, I'm talking to her just like I'm talking to y'all.
Yeah, wait, wasn't that time the Child Protective Services dragged you out of the school, off the school campus?
No.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
She says, I was going to get a whooping. Mm-hmm. And the teacher turned around and said, I didn't hear anything.
Right.
Do you know, the next week, when it was time to get that report, the teacher says, I could kind of guess what you did, but I can't know but she says, whatever you did, she says, thank you, because she is a different child, okay? That was one of the only times, a few times that my daughters ever got a whooping by me. But the point wasn't before I whooped her, I didn't just go ham on her and beat her butt and all
You
that.
gave her a chance to correct. I
had a long conversation with her. I said, because what you do out there is a reflection on me. And one thing
the family, not just you, the family. Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing them people ain't going to do is say her mama and daddy aren't doing a good job with her. And I didn't have that issue with her ever again.
Well, but you guys all got to remember, even though you were a working mother, you were still active and went up to the school when you needed to go up to the school. And you were, it ain't like you were like a stranger to the school. People knew who you were. And I think a lot of parents make that mistake when, we know everybody's working and struggling and trying to, stay within the matrix, but that's no excuse for the teachers and the principals and the security guard not to know who you are. I used to hate it when my mom would pop up at the school to do an audit. I used to hate that. And when I mean an audit of her children. How are we behaving? It was unannounced, and we were there. I would just see my mom in the back of the classroom, and I went, oh, shit. Raising my hand, even though I didn't know the answer. The mom know I went to Catholic school, so and that was a time when our parents were like, "Oh, we're gonna send them to the the white school to be better, or whatever." Unfortunately, our parents don't realize you kind of traumatize a lot of us by going to those schools. But it did teach me foundation and education. Thus, I'm very good at school. So I thank my mom for that. But I was fundamentally scarred because we're the only black kids in the school, or whatever. But it was a good experience. I'm not saying it was bad, but a lot of parents, and people knew my mom. They knew my mom wasn't having it when it comes to her children and stuff like that. But the teachers knew her, not like they were best friends, but they had a relationship. They knew, oh, Miss Coulter's coming today. Oh, how you doing, Miss Coulter? Whatever. You've got a lot of parents that use schools now as a daycare. They could care less if their kids are bringing home A's and B's, because we're also in an education system where they're passing these kids through. I actually heard this, Demetri, and I'm not in academia, but I actually heard this. They're saying it is in the kids' best nature not to be left behind from their classmates. Now, remember when we were in school, what incentivized us to do our work was the fact that we were going to be left behind. And you didn't get a chance to go to summer school if you've been, messing around all summer long. Summer school was for the kids who wanted to advance and be more advanced. Now we've got kids that can be disruptive all year. Then they can go to summer school to catch up, whatever, and then they're just passed through the system. But that was the whole point of, being in the school system. You didn't want to be left behind. But now I guess the new thing is, it would harm the child to be left behind their classmates. Well, then maybe they should work harder.
Yeah, that's very true. But it's not just that the child is not working hard. The school system is flawed too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's flawed, and it has lately become a daycare for demons. And listen, if it ain't your child, I'm not talking about your child. If your child is doing what it's supposed to be doing, but I come from a family of educators. My sister is a teacher. She's been doing it for over 20 years. And she says every year, I don't know how I'm going to continue doing it, because she's also going against the grain of unruly children, unruly parents. And
if any of them kids touch my baby, I'm there. I'm in Jacksonville on the red eye.
Even, the admin office, they got their issues. So it's flawed inside and out. But and it's not even just in the school. We're seeing these children that are unruly. We're seeing them everywhere. They're everywhere. They're unsupervised. It's just like I get it, but I don't get it. Parents nowadays, I don't really know what you're on or what your school of thought is. I know a lot of parents don't want to really be that. A lot of us are here by happenstance and not the daddy having a week pull-out game.
Yeah.
Or whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you have these children, it is your due diligence to teach them something, to be a credit to not just to our race, but a conducive citizen in society. But you all are raising hellions, children who are just there. I loosely want to call them children because they are a pain in the ass of society. We got them out there. They're not just, like I said, in school acting up. They're in the streets. they killing, they robbing, they doing the absolute most.
And we're not just talking about boys here; we're talking about girls as well.
Right, so they doing the absolute most out there, and the parents, you make excuses for these children, but I guess I low-key get why you're making excuses, because then you have to actually admit that you are a horrible parent, and you didn't teach your child nothing. You coddled them, told them the world revolves around them, and they are the sunshine in everybody's lives, and they never have to be held accountable for anything. But you know what? Now, what has gone on is we are producing an unruly society. And I'm not even talking about black kids, because it's not just black kids, right?
It's society as a whole.
It's society in general. I mean, we saw Kyle Rittenhouse walking down the street with all that artillery killing people, and he's been set free. So not only was he taught that by his parents, that it's okay to go out there and kill people, but the whole country, certain sector of the country.
What about that family in Wisconsin where the mother was like, I'm not mad at you, I'm just mad that you got caught?
Well, all of that. So you have a whole society, a portion of society that has patted him on the back for doing things that children do not do, and in all fairness, things that adults shouldn't do. And so when I say that we should be very afraid, I'm not saying it just to say it. I think that we are at that point to where there's a lot of people, and I hear stories of people saying they won't even go pump their gas without having a gun on their hip.
Yeah,
I saw a picture of a sister pumping her gas with her gun in the air. She had her gun held up in the air as she's pumping her gas to let Ray, Pookie, Jared, Brad, Ling, Miguel, or whoever. And so in some cases, some of these girls know that if you try to do anything and you come next to me and I feel in danger of my life, you're going to get all this hot lead in your ass. Why do you have to do that?
Yeah, and it's so sad because here in Los Angeles with the gas prices going up, people would rather pay the high gas prices than get on the bus systems because of the mental illness and the homeless issues and things like that. So, that shows you, like you said, we're in a society now to where it's the OK Corral. We're in the Wild Wild West. I mean, I really can't afford to drive my car because of the gas prices. And there's a bus system here or a mass transit system. And people are so afraid to get on the mass transit because you have so many homeless people, be it mental illness or whatever, and crime, that people don't want to take the mass transit system because we've let it go. We let these people take over, and it's just sad. It's just a sad situation.
Yeah, and so, we need to get to the point of finding solutions. Now, in all fairness, like I said, my child will be 30 at the end of this year.
What? You said she was 3.
Right. She'll be 30. So I'm not in the realm of that anymore, of raising any small children. But I will say, and nobody's going to tell y'all differently, that I did my job in making sure that I raised a young lady that was going to be a great citizen,
productive
in society.
Yeah, productive.
Was not going to be a problem in society. And I will tell you this: I have 5 siblings. 4 of us, I will say, has not had that problem because we had parents that made sure that we did what we were supposed to do. Period. It was no, and
they didn't operate in gray. They didn't operate in gray.
No, I didn't. And I had the type of parents that, we learned a lot. We were involved in a lot of activities, but you were going to mine. Like we had to do the dishes every night. The dishes were supposed to be done. One time we didn't do the dishes. My father is my second father. I have, 2 fathers. Woke us up. It was probably like 2, 3 in the morning. We went into the kitchen. All the dishes were taken out the cabinets. He says, because you did not do the dishes, now you're going to do all the dishes. And I tell you what, we never did again.
Right.
Never not did the dishes again. Now, some people say, see, then wait now. I can hear somebody saying that's cruel, that's abusive, that's toxic. No, it's teaching a lesson.
Right.
One, it wasn't that we didn't need to do all of this. It was, you're going to do what I say, do it, when I say do it, and how I say do it, because not only will there be consequences in this household, if you get out into that world and don't follow instructions, you will be held to consequences. And guess what? You might do something so heinous that it would be nothing your mother or I will be able to do to get you out of that. So it's better that I put a foot, proverbially, obviously, and sometimes physically, to your backside in this house. Or that way you won't get out into the world and think that they love me too because I got away with so much nonsense at the house. You're going to take your ass into the world and you're going to abide by the rules so that it doesn't cost you or I any extra something we don't want to give up.
Right, and it's funny that you say that because I remember my mother used to say all the time, it is very important that we do not lie. We do not lie to her especially, because if we did get in trouble out there in the world, she needs to know that we are credible in what we are saying. If we were one of those kids that were like, we get in trouble every now and then, we get caught in lies every now and then, what is she to believe? My mom's not going to put her reputation and stuff on the line just because we're her child. My mother used to say this, and it was really telling for me. She said, "You're man enough to do what you did. Do not call me if you get arrested. Until the next day or whatever it is, don't call me and wake me up out of my sleep, whatever." She was, "I will get to you when I get to you because you're out there doing what you know you're not supposed to do that got you into the trouble." It's always been just simple little rules and things like that could make such a difference in these kids' life. But like you said, these parents aren't teaching anymore. They're just not doing it. Didn't Houston, one of the school districts there, had to do a dress code policy for the parents? For the parents. What does that say? If the parents don't know how to dress, I guess, a standard, what the hell's going on? I mean, okay, let's say I'm a woman and I'm dressing a provocative way. Our kids look at us and for what they're supposed to do. So if I'm dressing provocative and I think it's okay, and I see it all the time when I go to Walmart, I see the young kids dressing like the parents. You see these women always complaining about, these dudes ain't doing this, dudes ain't doing that. This boy will have his pants by his knees and his mother is saying nothing to him. Zero. Complete.
Yeah, so like I said, we got to get to some solutions on how to fix this. But yeah, just the fact that even with the whole dress code thing in Houston, that there were parents and people who were like, well, that's not right. And how you going to tell people what to listen, ma'am, sir, whoever it is that's big upping parents going to school in bonnets and T-shirts and sagging pants and nightgowns. Is like, I'm just one of those people. Like, I'm not going to argue in ignorance. I like ignorance to me is nails on a chalkboard, because had that been my school at the nicest way possible, I'd have said, I don't give two damns about what you want to do. But when you come into my school, ma'am, sir, you're going to come in here like you got some sense. I don't want to see your bonnet. I don't want to see your ass. I don't want to see through your nightgown. I come in because then how are we to tell these children to come act accordingly, and their mama is coming up here looking like that? And first of all, ma'am, you should be, and I know your grandmama, if she's still here, is probably ashamed of you. You should be ashamed to come out of your house and into your child's educational institution dressed like that. And sir, you should not be coming out of the house with just a white beater on, as say, a white T-shirt and your pants sagging. Come to the school as if you have some level of authority, right? Like, I'm dressed, you wouldn't want me, and other parties too. There are teachers in the school that are dressed like they're going to the club. And, I know when I was going to school, I would see my teachers in stockings and dresses and blazers and shirts, and the males, they were dressed as they were the authority figure. Mm-hmm. You didn't come into the classroom and say, well, who's the teacher?
Right.
Who's the parent? I've been on school, let me finish. I've been on school campuses before in the recent couple of years where I've seen teachers walking across the campus in stilettos, and I'm like, why do you need to wear that here? It's a junior high campus, and you're in stilettos on a junior high campus. You got tight jeans on. Like, what? You don't look like the authority figure here. And so We need to get back to the point in our educational system where the teachers and the admin look like the authority figures, and the students too, because listen, there's been plenty of times when I was dropping my kids, and I say kids because I have a biological daughter and I raised 3 of my nieces and nephews, when I was dropping them off to school and I would see students going to school with booty shorts on and booties hanging out, before I left that parking lot, I called, excuse me, who's manning the ship here? I've seen 2 girls walk in and I've seen their booty cheeks. Who is making